My bridal shower had always been a dream I had cherished. Tables set with delicate flowers, light-hearted laughter, handmade party favors, and my family and friends gathered to celebrate a new phase of my life. The air held that lovely atmosphere of a new chapter, where everyone believes the future will be filled with love, companionship, and respect. I was radiant, wearing a simple dress that made me feel special. People chatted, toasted, took photos, and everything seemed perfect, until the door opened and my mother-in-law arrived. She entered with determined steps, holding a huge box decorated with a red bow so large it seemed almost theatrical. The room turned to face her, and so did I. I confess, my heart beat faster because for a second I thought she had prepared something moving, symbolic, perhaps a family heirloom, something that showed warmth and affection. But her smile, it wasn't a sweet smile. It was a smile laden with intention, like someone who knows exactly the impact she's about to make. She came closer, placed the box in my hands with exaggerated enthusiasm, and said in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "This gift will help you a lot in your new life as a wife." All eyes were on me. I carefully opened the package, trying to maintain my composure and elegance. The lid lifted, and in that instant, the atmosphere changed. Inside the box were cleaning supplies, sponges, detergents, cloths, disinfectants, rubber gloves, and even a collapsible bucket. The room, which had previously been filled with laughter, plunged into an uncomfortable silence. Some people exchanged glances, others tried to hide a nervous smile, and I, for a few seconds, simply stared at that household kit, feeling the heat rise to my face, a mixture of humiliation and disbelief. She thought she was giving me the perfect gift for a wife, as if my role in marriage were limited to cleaning, serving, bowing my head, and saying thank you. But what she didn't realize was that I was already prepared for what would come next, and that would be the first and last time she would try to belittle me publicly without consequences. Before that incident at the bridal shower, my relationship with my mother-in-law had always been delicate. I can't say she was openly hostile, at least not in a way that someone from the outside would immediately notice. It was all very subtle, wrapped in fake smiles and phrases delivered in a tone that, to someone listening without context, might even sound polite. But I felt it. A constant discomfort, like a callus that doesn't hurt all the time, but stings whenever someone steps in exactly the right spot, and she knew how to step in that spot. From the beginning of our relationship, she made comments implying that I should know my place as a future wife. When I talked about my career and professional plans, she would say things like, "Work is important, of course, but your priority now will be your home and your husband, right?" If I said that I knew how to cook a few things, she would reply, "Only a few. Well, there's still time to learn after all. A real woman takes good care of her home." When my fiancé and I were planning trips or moments together, she would say, half laughing, "Enjoy it while you can't have children yet, because after that you'll only have time to do laundry and make bottles." They were small phrases, thrown out casually but carrying centuries of expectation, sexism disguised as tradition, and a clear attempt to put me in an inferior position. Trying to keep the peace, I always took a deep breath, smiled, and changed the subject. I told myself she was from another generation, that it wasn't worth creating friction, that the love I felt for my fiancé was more important than any dig. I tried to be patient, conciliatory, to choose my battles. After all, I was about to get married, build a new life, and I believed that respect was something earned through calm, dialogue, and kindness. But respect also requires boundaries. And she confused my patience with submission. She thought she could mold my life according to her beliefs, as if I were assuming an old, outdated, and imposed role. The gift at the bridal shower wasn't an accident. It was the culmination of a series of small attempts to belittle me, and on that day she would discover that I wouldn't be silenced, ashamed, or controlled. Because peace doesn't mean accepting humiliation, it means knowing exactly when to put an end to it. The setting was perfect, exactly as I had always dreamed. The tables were decorated in pastel shades, with fresh flowers and soft lighting creating a welcoming and romantic atmosphere. The aroma of freshly baked cake mingled with the scent of coffee and homemade sweets prepared by loved ones. Laughter filled the room, soft music played in the background, and for a few moments the world seemed like a safe place, full of affection and good intentions. My family, friends, and important people were there celebrating a new chapter in my life, It was a day to cherish in my heart. With each gift I opened, more emotion filled me. Dinner sets chosen with care, glasses embroidered with our initials, handmade items, notes with wishes of happiness and love. I felt embraced, respected, celebrated. Each gesture reinforced that this was a moment of unity and togetherness. My smile was genuine, my heart was light, and I believed that nothing could spoil that day, until the door opened again, and she went in. My mother-in-law appeared with an exaggerated, almost theatrical smile, carrying a huge box. You didn't need to be an expert in body language to realize that smile wasn't innocent. The people around us noticed too. The atmosphere, previously light, became slightly tense, almost imperceptible to those who weren't paying attention. My heart gave a small leap, not of joy, but of that instinctive feeling of alert. Some guests looked at the box and exchanged curious glances. Others whispered softly with that typical mix of curiosity and anticipation. And of course some cell phones began to be discreetly positioned, as if everyone there knew that something unexpected was about to happen. Nowadays, nobody misses the chance to capture a potential viral moment. She approached slowly, with calculated steps, as if she knew exactly that she was drawing attention. She extended the gift to me with a strange glint in her eyes, that glint of someone who believes they are about to demonstrate superiority. I took a deep breath, still trying to maintain the celebratory mood, believing, perhaps naively, that there was a remnant of good intention there. But the box seemed too heavy, not because of its contents, but because of the energy it carried. That was the exact moment when the party ceased to be just a celebration and began to transform into a test of character, boundaries, and respect. I still had no idea what was coming, but my subconscious was already whispering, prepare, because when giggles erupt in the background, cameras rise, and a mother-in-law arrives with a victorious smile, it's rarely a coincidence. It was the beginning of the test, and I was about to face it. With the box already in my hands, I felt not only its physical weight, but also its emotional weight. Every glance that fell upon me seemed to foresee that this gift would not be like the others. I took a deep breath, tried to maintain a polite smile, and carefully untied the ribbon as one who respects the gesture. Even while fearing its contents, the people around me leaned in discreetly, wanting to see every detail. The atmosphere became suspended, almost silent, as if time had slowed down. Then I lifted the lid. The shock was immediate and collective. Inside the box was a complete household cleaning kit: rubber gloves, thick sponges, rolls of multi-purpose cloths, huge bottles of detergent, industrial disinfectant, a collapsible bucket, and even a scrub brush. It was practically a household arsenal. Nothing delicate, nothing symbolic, nothing that represented affection or a wish for happiness in my marriage. It was a message, clear, direct, and cruel, an attempt to remind me who I should be. Before I could react, she flashed a triumphant smile, and in a tone of voice that mixed irony and feigned innocence, declared loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Every good wife needs this to start things off on the right foot, doesn't she?" Silence fell. Immediately, an almost palpable discomfort filled the room. Some people held their breath, others lowered their eyes, unable to face the scene. Someone let out a nervous laugh, quickly muffled. I could feel glances of pity, indignation, and disbelief crossing the room. It seemed as if everyone was waiting for my reaction, ready to be judged, commented on, filmed, or shared. Inside me, an intense mixture began to bubble: anger, humiliation, sadness, but also firmness. My urge was to slam the box, shut and leave, or perhaps return the humiliation with the same intensity. But no, that moment wouldn't define me. The party was mine, my story, my life, my future. I wouldn't be diminished. I took a deep breath, calmly held the box lid, and looked up at her, meeting her eyes with a serenity I didn't even know I possessed. I smiled, not a submissive smile, but the smile of someone who knows exactly their worth and the place they occupy. I maintained my composure, without trembling, without falling for the provocation, because sometimes dignified silence is more powerful than 1,000 heated responses. Right then and there, she thought she had won. She didn't know she had just lit the fuse of a reaction that would change everything. Her gift didn't humiliate me. It only confirmed that I was right to prepare myself for what was to come, and she had no idea what awaited her next. For many people, that gift might have seemed like a bad joke, something to laugh about later. But I never saw my life as something that should fit into old molds, nor did I accept that anyone should decide for me what my role in the world would be. From a young age, my parents taught me to be independent, not only financially, but emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. I grew up hearing phrases like, "You can do anything you want," "Never lower your head to anyone who tries to belittle you," and most importantly, "Respect is fundamental, and it starts at home." I studied, worked from a young age, and built my dreams through effort and discipline. While many people believe that a woman's fulfillment lies solely in getting married and starting a family, I was always encouraged to understand that marriage is a part of life, not its center, and that true love is partnership, not obedience. I already had a career, personal plans, and autonomy long before I even thought about the altar. I didn't enter a relationship to be molded by someone, and that for her was unbearable. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, seemed stuck in a past that wasn't mine. For her, a real woman is one who dedicates herself exclusively to the home, who serves, who is silent, who is grateful. No matter how much the world has changed, her mind remained stuck in a time when women's desires were merely extensions of men's. Perhaps for her, I represented a threat, not because I was arrogant or disrespectful, but because I was free, and freedom frightens those who have never experienced it. She tried to belittle me through small gestures, as if she wanted to teach me the place that, in her view, I should occupy. Her indirect comments weren't about household chores, they were about control. It wasn't about detergent, cloths, or sponges. It was about power. It was an attempt to plant a seed of submission before I could fully blossom, but my history wouldn't allow that. I was raised to walk with my head held high, knowing who I am and where I want to go. I didn't need anyone to remind me of the value of caring for a home, because I knew that taking care of a home is important, but I also knew that taking care of myself, my dreams, and my self-respect was fundamental. And if she thought she could reduce me to an outdated stereotype with a public and humiliating gift, she clearly didn't know my story, much less my strength. That gift didn't affect me because I was fragile. It affected me because it represented everything I fought to never become: a controlled, silenced woman, confined to expectations I didn't choose. And right there, in front of everyone, I knew that this would be the last chapter of that kind of attempt. My life has always been guided by respect, and now I was about to teach that it's a two-way street. After my mother-in-law's comment and the general discomfort that filled the room, the hall seemed to plunge into a calculated, almost choreographed silence. The kind of silence that doesn't stem from a lack of words, but from an excess of them, all, stuck in the throats of those observing, unsure how to react. People fiddled with their glasses, adjusted their napkins, pretended to look at the party favors on the table, but no one could truly ignore what had just happened. It was as if everyone feared that any movement might light a match in a barrel of emotional gunpowder. My parents exchanged discreet glances, a mixture of indignation and restraint. Some friends whispered, trying to create an artificial normalcy. There were even those who tried to bring up a random topic in a desperate attempt to salvage the mood, but it was useless. The air was heavy, laden with expectation and tension, as if the room were holding its breath along with me. I, for my part, maintained a calm and polite, almost angelic smile. But behind it lay much more than tranquility. There was strategy. My posture wasn't that of someone who had been defeated, but of someone about to make a calculated move. I held the box as if it were just another gift, not an explicit attempt at humiliation. That confused some onlookers. It seemed I was accepting the situation with elegance, and in part I was, but not in the way she imagined. On the other side, my mother-in-law was proud. It was visible in the satisfied gleam of her eyes, in the way she crossed her arms, leaned slightly back and raised her chin, as if admiring her own work. She thought she had put me in my place, that she had sent a clear message in front of everyone, and that I would play the role she expected, that of the embarrassed, submissive bride grateful for the care. But what she saw was only part of the scene, not the whole story. She smiled with that expression of false sweetness that only those who have received humiliations disguised as kindness know how to recognize. That smile said, "Now you know where you should stay." Hers was a smile of victory. Mine was the smile of someone who chooses when to act. And while she internally celebrated what she believed to be a decisive blow, I felt a different kind of calm growing inside me. A powerful, firm, decisive calm. The calm before a reaction that wouldn't come with shouts or insults, but with something she would never expect. There, in that silence full of meaning, she believed she had won. Little did she know that the smile I maintained wasn't a sign of submission. It was a warning. The storm was coming, and there would be no social umbrella to protect her from what was to come. Silence still hung in the air. When I decided that this was the exact moment, without haste, without exaggerated drama, with the same serenity I had maintained since opening the box, I reached for the bag beside me. Some people noticed the movement and stood attentively, perhaps expecting a tissue, perhaps imagining I was going to the bathroom to get some air. But instead, I pulled out a white envelope, elegant, thick, carefully sealed. It was the kind of envelope that doesn't carry flowers or thank you cards. It carries decisions. I held the envelope firmly and walked over to my mother-in-law. Each step seemed to echo, as if the room had shrunk and all sounds had vanished. When I stopped before her, I saw in her eyes a mixture of curiosity and disdain, still convinced of her victory. With a polite smile and straight posture, I extended the envelope and said softly, "This is my gift to you." She frowned in surprise. She accepted the envelope, but her air of superiority began to waver. She opened it hastily, as if expecting a thank you note or some symbolic gesture, and then as her eyes scanned the contents, her expression changed. First confusion, then disbelief, and finally a contained irritation that she tried unsuccessfully to mask. It was a legal notification, a formal document establishing property and marital autonomy boundaries. It clearly stated that financial, property, and personal decisions of the couple belonged exclusively to the two of us, and that external interference, even from relatives, would have no validity or influence. In simple but direct terms, she would have no control, participation, or voice in our marital, financial, or life decisions. The reaction around was immediate. A growing murmur spread, wide eyes, hands covering surprised mouths, cell phones being discreetly raised to record that historic moment of family social justice. It was as if everyone had watched the slow construction of a trap and finally saw the exact moment it closed. I, calm as a breeze, before summer, added, "Since you brought something to help me be a good wife, I brought something to ensure that I will be a wife, free and respected." She tried to swallow her indignation, but her hands trembled slightly, betraying her shock. The symbolic ground beneath her feet had vanished. The woman who believed she controlled the territory had just discovered that the land had never been hers, and that I had drawn my own map with my own rules. It was more than an answer. It was a boundary, a reminder that respect isn't asked for, it's demanded. And in that instant, no one in the room had any doubts. The narrative had shifted, and I wouldn't be led by anyone but my own hand. When my mother-in-law finished reading the notification, her face lost the arrogant glint it had carried minutes before. It was like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. Her lips parted slightly, as if trying to formulate a response, but nothing came out. For the first time since I met her, she was speechless. Her eyes, once full of unwavering control, now darted from side to side, searching for some support, some justification, some escape route that simply didn't exist. The silence that followed was different from that previous moment of tension. It wasn't heavy, it was liberating. A silence that breathed relief, justice, and even a certain collective sense of humor. It only took a few seconds for the atmosphere to begin to react. Someone in a corner bit their lip hard, trying to suppress a smile that insisted on escaping. Another person turned their back and shrugged, clearly laughing silently. Until, inevitably, the first whisper arose, softly, crossing the room like a spark. "Well done." That was enough to spark other small voices, mainly from the aunts. Those women who grew up in times similar to my mother-in-law's, but who, unlike her, learned to adapt to the world and respect new paths. She deserved it. He thought he was going to humiliate her, but he got what was coming. To him, divine justice sometimes happens quickly. Some tried to disguise it, lowering their faces to their glasses, but they couldn't hide the satisfied gleam in their eyes. It was clear. Those phrases weren't just gossip. They were pent-up feelings. Perhaps they themselves had already been the target of small humiliations, forced expectations, unfair demands. To see that happen, and to see the firm and elegant response I gave, was like witnessing a shared victory. My fiancé, who had been silently observing until then, took a discreet step towards me. His gaze was one of pure admiration, mixed with pride and respect. It wasn't the look of someone who needed to defend me. It was the look of someone who recognizes strength and walks alongside it. He knew what that act represented and, without saying anything, gently placed his hand on my lower back. A small gesture, but full of meaning. I'm with you, and I always will be. The atmosphere of the party, which had previously been tense and almost lost, changed completely. It was as if the air had been renewed. There was no more heaviness, only relief, and even a slight celebratory mood. Someone clapped, timidly at first, but was joined by other restrained laughs and knowing glances. My mother-in-law, still holding the paper in her hands, seemed smaller, more fragile, but not in the sense of someone wronged. It was the true size of someone who loses the stage when the curtain falls. The victory wasn't in the document itself, but in the symbol it represented, and at that moment it became clear to everyone there that marriage wouldn't be an arena of control, it would be a partnership, and that, in my life, respect wouldn't be negotiable. After the initial shock and unexpected turn of events, something far greater than a simple exchange of gifts took place in that room. That episode served as a powerful reminder that building a life together requires more than love. It demands clear boundaries, mutual respect, and the courage to protect what we are building. Because however important family is, there is a line that no one, absolutely no one, should cross, the sacred space of the couple. Many people grow up believing that marriage is a union between two families. And yes, in a way there is integration, but the essential truth is different. Marriage is, above all, a pact between two people. It's two souls, two dreams, two paths that decide to walk side by side. It's not a contract of ownership. It's not an invasion of territory. It's not a stage for emotional control. Families can support, advise, be present, but not command, not dictate, not manipulate. My mother-in-law, like so many other old-fashioned people, believed she could shape our lives, our choices, and even my role as a wife. She confused tradition with oppression, care with control, and help with domination. But when love and respect truly come into play, there's no room for power games. Respect isn't a favor, it's a foundation. And when it's lacking, there are civilized and formal ways to ensure that balance is restored. Some people think it's excessive to use legal means to establish family boundaries, but the truth is, when dialogue fails, when indirect comments turn into attacks, and when humiliation tries to replace healthy coexistence, protecting your home isn't aggressive, it's necessary. Because love doesn't survive where autonomy is stifled. There's no peace in a home where others pull the strings, and there's no healthy marriage while someone outside tries to control a life that doesn't belong to them. That bridal shower wasn't just about cleaning a house, it was about clearing emotional, psychological, and social boundaries. It was about making it clear that respect resides where limits are defined, and that building a family begins with a fundamental understanding. The couple leads, the rest follow, if they want to, and with respect. And if there's one lesson to be learned, it's this: no one can. Silence your voice when you know who you are. No one can put chains on someone who has learned to walk alone, and whoever tries to control what isn't theirs, sooner or later, discovers that freedom has documents, posture, and consequences. Love flourishes when there is space, trust, and honor, and nothing protects a home more than clear boundaries and a heart that knows its own worth. And so, on that day that began with flowers, laughter, and sweet expectations, it ended with a lesson that resonated louder than any song or toast at the party. Everyone who was there left with something to think about, because in the end, the truth prevailed in an elegant, firm, and unforgettable way. Marriage is not about cleaning, obeying, or fitting into old molds. It's about building a life, a home, a partnership, and above all, a future where respect is not an optional script, but a solid, non-negotiable, and living foundation. When two people choose to unite, they are not signing a contract of submission, but a promise of mutual growth. Love does not flourish in soil where there is humiliation, control, or power struggles. It grows where there is trust, equality, and support. And if someone, whoever it may be, tries to cross that intimate space with impositions and outdated limits, it is up to the couple to protect the ground they are cultivating, sometimes with conversation, sometimes with attitude, and sometimes, yes, with formal documents. Because love is not measured by how much someone endures, but by how much someone respects themselves and how much they are willing to defend that dignity. Now, I want to hear from you. Tell me, Would you have the courage to do the same? Would you have the strength to set such clear boundaries and defend your autonomy in a public moment like this? Or have you ever experienced something similar? That embarrassing gift, that situation planned to belittle you, that gesture that seemed innocent but carried a malicious intention. Behind it? What was the most embarrassing gift you've ever received? Tell me in the comments. Your experience can inspire others to recognize and act in the face of disrespect disguised as jokes. And of course, if this story touched you, made you reflect, or even brought a smile of poetic justice to your face, take the opportunity to stay a little longer with us. We have many other real, surprising, moving stories full of strength, bravery, and twists that show how ironic life can be and how respect, when firmly defended, always finds its way. If you believe that respect begins before marriage, leave a like and write in the comments, "Respect above all else." And if you want to see more stories like this, full of truth, courage, and real emotions, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because here we don't just tell stories, we talk about choices, about boundaries, and about the value of loving yourself enough to never accept less than you deserve. Until the next video.